Welcome to the Madison Shooting Academy Podcast. If you're a clay target shooter, then we have what you're looking for. Speaking with some of the best in the industry about the game you're passionate about. Subscribe to the Clay Lab on YouTube and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or your favorite podcast platform. The Madison Shooting Academy Podcast is brought to you by Castellani USA, Greenwood Custom Stocks, and Ranger Eyewear. Here's your host, Cody Madsen of Madison Shooting Academy.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Madison Shooting Academy Podcast. I have a guest on this evening, a local Georgia shooter. You'll always see his name on the top of the leaderboard at any local shoot you go to, and saw him over in Mississippi recently, and I'd like to welcome Mike McHenry to the show. So Mike, welcome to the show tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mike, you and I, we connected it out at Old Hudson at Georgia State FETASC, and I talked about having you on the podcast. You know, I see you at most every local shoot, and starting to see, as the more I travel, I see you at those places too. And we were just at Providence Hill in Mississippi. How'd that go for you?
That was great. I thought that was a beautiful venue. I thought it was very well run. Just about every kind of topography you could imagine.
Yeah, they do.
You know, that was really, really nice.
Yeah, Providence is such a beautiful place. You know, I'd heard so many people talk about it, and everybody raves, the horse barn and everything. But yeah, the topography was one of the biggest things that stuck out to me. You know, we shot in the open, shot in the woods, shot big terrain and everything, and it was pretty amazing. The targets were great as well.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job of using that terrain.
They sure did. Yeah, FETASC was great. But you and I talking a little bit earlier, you said Providence holds a special place in your heart. What shoot sticks out in your mind there?
I had a pretty good shoot at the 2023 state shoot, the Mississippi State shoot there, the Providence Hill Cup, I think they called it. And yeah, I had a 99 in the prelim there, and that was HOA, and I was pretty proud of that. Did pretty good overall in general at that tournament.
Wow. Yeah, 99, that's getting it done.
Yeah, I think I was second, third, and just about everything, and had HOA in that prelim.
Wow.
That place kind of holds a special place for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Fond memories for sure. Well, I'd like to, so we go to where you're at the point where you're shooting 99s in competition, and let's backtrack a little bit. Let's talk about, how you got into the sport, what led you into it. Talk about the journey that you've been on to get to the point where you've been.
Sure. So I've been a shooter all my life of some sort. I've either handguns, rifles, shotguns. I mean, just about anything. Hunted a lot when I was young or younger. And I didn't really know much about sporting clays, but kind of as I told you a little bit earlier, I have an old shotgun collection, and I just wanted to shoot one day. And I took 2 or 3 of them out to a local range and thought that'd be a great place to shoot old guns. And I did. And that's what I did. And I did that 2 or 3 times and rapidly realized that the game was very challenging and very fun. And I really enjoyed it. And that led me to my first target shotgun. That was in 2018, I believe it was. And So I shot for about a year, and then I just started meeting people, and I had a few guys talk me into trying registered shooting. And I started that in 2019 and quickly fell in love with it. I became addicted, like most of us, pretty quickly.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So going from what type of antique shotguns do you like to collect?
Oh, I've got all kinds of stuff. 97 Winchesters, old auto 5s, Remington 11s, double barrel hammer guns. I've got tons of them. I just
got a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I don't shoot them anymore. I stick to my target gun now.
Yeah. No, that's a lot of fun to shoot them though. So when you got your first target gun, what did you go with when you decided that, hey, these just aren't going to cut it anymore?
Well, the first target gun I bought was a Remington 1100 sporting gun.
Okay.
And I shot that for, 4 or 5 months. And then I ended up with a Browning, a double barrel. I think it was a CSX. And I shot that for a little while. And then I ended up with my first Caesar Guerini, and I've I've had 4 or 5 different Caesar greenies, and that's what I shoot to.
Okay. Yeah. No, I see usually wearing the greeny shirt, and you find, what's the current model greeny that you've landed on?
I shoot an Invictus 5,
Okay.
34-inch M-Spec Specialist fixed choke gun.
Nice. And what choke do you have that fixed to?
It's iMod.
Yep. That'll there's not too many that can not reach that.
Yeah, the tubes have actually been worked over by Jim Eistrich.
Nice.
So I think they're like 20, 20, 21, 22, something like that. So they're a little bit in between modified and iMod.
All right, folks, we'll be right back after a sponsor segment. Folks, are you missing clays and wondering where everything's going? ShotCam can help. It's a lightweight camera that attaches under your barrel to record every shot with the red dot reticle showing where your barrel is pointed at the moment of truth. Just turn it on. It automatically saves everything. Pretty dummy proof. Instantly replay the videos on your phone, and they are clear enough to even see the pellets in the air. I've used it myself and love how it shows where I'm doing right or wrong, and I use it with my students a lot to prove to them what they're doing with the gun and where their pellets are going. I recommend it for my students to practice with, and you can link it up as much as you'd like to. Get it at shotcam.com with code THECLAYLAB, one word, for 10% off. Average shooter could probably see as much as 10% improvement after the first 30 days of using the camera. That's ShotCam, spelled shot, then cam with a K.
Yeah. And you find that's the perfect balance for you. I mean, do you primarily shoot sporting? Do you dabble in FETASC and 5-stand and stuff as well?
Yeah, I shoot just about every 12 gauge event that's available. FETASC is something I feel like I need to start working a little bit more specifically on. If I want to improve in that particular event, I need to spend a little bit more time practicing. But yeah, I mean, I love it all. You could probably throw a rock in the air and I'd be fine shooting at it.
There you go. Well, I like that for sure. So talking about FETASC, do you find your shooting style, are you primarily a mounted gun shooter? Is the challenge you feel like in FETASC low gun for you? Or
I do. I don't feel like the mount in and of itself is a challenge. I feel like the timing is a challenge. It's different. The timing's different. And I spend very, very little time ever working on that.
yeah.
So that's the part of it. I feel like my mount's good. I just feel like the timing is different.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess kind of getting to know you a little bit better, everybody seems to get very, I guess, in the weeds on methodologies, and, everybody wants to talk about, what method do you shoot and how do you do that? And, I think it is part of the conversation, but I don't think it's, all of the conversation. But do you have a core methodology that you shoot?
Yeah, I would say that, first of all, I believe that there's a place for every method.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that I don't want to be singly focused on any particular method, but as a base or as a core method, I'd say probably 70% of the time I'm going to shoot pullaway.
Okay. And do you find that by shooting pullaway, are you able to get your connection established with the bird better and then finish that lead off? Is that the appeal to you?
I do. I feel like that my timing works well with that method. And then I'll vary that. I might pull away from the back. I might pull away from a couple feet out in front. It could be maintained into pull away. It could be, come from behind into pull away. You might could call that swing through. Depends on the presentation. It depends on where I'm at. Did I get beat? Or whatever. Generally speaking, I'll shoot a pretty much traditional pull away.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I pulled up some stats on you, and you've got 87,000 registered targets that you have library cataloged. Do you view the targets now and tell yourself ahead of time, hey, I'm going to do this method here and that method there? Or is it just ingrained in you at this point?
Well, I always try to make a plan. I'll always try, when we're viewing the targets, I'll try to decide that, I'm going to swing a little pull away on the first target, straight up swing through on the second one, maintained, whatever method I feel is the proper method for that particular target. I'll try to establish that first, and then I'll establish where do I start from? Where's my hold points? Where's the lines? Where's the birds going? What's the distance? What's the speed? What's the line doing? I'll try to do all that, before before I get up to shoot, before I get in the box.
So that stuff is all done before you even set foot in the box. You're saying planning outside the box.
Yeah, unless I'm the first shooter. And then, of course, if you're the first shooter, you don't really get that opportunity. You have to do it while you're in the box. But
yeah, no, I think, having that plan and, plan A doesn't always work, but you got to start somewhere, right?
yeah, sometimes you get fooled. It doesn't work at all. That's why I believe it helps to practice all methods.
Yeah.
Best laid plans. You might get up there and plan to shoot a straight up pull away on a target and realize that your whole point was wrong and you got beat. So what are you going to do? You don't get to start over. You're going to have to shoot swing through.
Yeah. You gotta fix it on the fly, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Well, I consider you, a very accomplished and seasoned shooter. You seem to always put in a good score. What, preparing for something like the US Open, that we just came off of, do you have a training routine or regiment build up ahead of a competition? Do you try to get in X amount of practice, or, are you just kind of on autopilot at this point?
No, I love practice. I enjoy practice. I've enjoyed practice in any sport I've ever competed in any game I've ever played, whether it's golf, baseball, whatever. I've always enjoyed archery. I've always enjoyed practice. I've always thought that practice was just as much fun as competition. So my belief is that you should shoot 2 to 3 targets in practice for every target that you would shoot in registered shooting.
Interesting.
At least at my level, at where I'm trying to be. Now, somebody who's been shooting for a lot longer and has a lot more experience, they may not see it that way. But for me, starting so late in life, I feel like that with, a lot, I got to make up a lot of time. So I try to practice as often as I can.
Nice. Well, I think that's a great attitude that, people, I hear begrudgingly say, oh, I got to go practice or this or that, but it sounds like you're looking forward to those practice sessions and enjoying that as well.
I love practice. I enjoy that. I enjoy a lot of times being out there by myself, all alone, where I can really get focused and no distractions and really kind of get in the zone. I enjoy that. I know that some people don't, but I'm somebody who really does like that. I enjoy practice. To me, that's what makes it worth it.
I think it's when you put in the work, it's like anything in life. If you've put in the work and you've earned that win or earned that item that you've been working for, you appreciate it that much more. I think putting in that effort I think it's all part of it. I think you gotta earn it in this game. Rarely is it a underdog story of somebody coming up, out of the blue and, winning something like the Open, right? It's the guys and gals that put in the work.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's true. Sometimes it can have a reverse effect on you. You can work and work and work and work and then have a bad round and you feel like, for a minute or two that, it was all in vain and you probably just wasted your time. And then I used to say in golf, and then you'd sink that 10-foot putt on the 18th green and man, you wanted to go play again tomorrow,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always something in this game that draws you back in, isn't there?
Absolutely.
So great. Yeah.
And the camaraderie is, something that I really enjoy. I've gotten to know so many people in this game and I've met, so many nice people. Everybody's so friendly and everybody's got the same addiction, just about. Everybody's, we're all the same. We all want to shoot well.
Right. Yeah. But you're spot on with, the group of people that you'll meet. I don't care where you go. We made the comment, where else can you go and leave your, expensive shotguns and car keys in your golf cart and just walk away from it. I mean, it's such a great core group of people.
Yeah. Not even worry about it.
Yep. Not at all. But, so going back to, you said you enjoyed, getting a practice session in by yourself where you can get in the zone. Kind of step me through like what does a practice session for Mike look like, going out? Are you working on specific things or what does that look like for you?
I'll vary that a little bit from time to time, but most of the time I like to start off working some drills and stuff that I've kind of developed on my own. Shoot a lot of singles. Usually start off with something going away, quartering birds right to left, then left to right. Then I'll start working those into crossers, high birds, still shooting a lot of singles. And then about halfway through, I'll start switching to pairs. And sometimes I'll go back to the same stations, start shooting pairs, maybe turn those into trues. Sometimes I'll go out and I'll just shoot a practice round. Just depends on the mood I'm in, to be honest with you. Some days I might go back to a course I shot a competitive round in and just see if I can't better it. Just step up there, look at a show pair and go,
Yeah.
But most of the time, I'm very methodical in my approach to training and practice. I'm pretty methodical. I try to work on the things that I think I need to be working on, the things that I'm not doing really well, or not well enough. I might be, I may spend a whole 2 hours just working on insertion,
Wow.
just trying to hit my insertion, to perfection. I figure if I can perfect it in practice, I can get it 50% right. In competition, I'll be doing okay.
Yeah. So do you feel like there's, in competition with maybe the gravity of the situation or the difficulty of the birds, do you feel that you don't peak perform in competition as much as you do in practice? Do you feel like it's different, or you feel like it's no different, the pressure?
Well, the pressure is definitely different in competition, especially at the big shoots, because you just so badly want to do well. I don't know. Practice is different than actual competition, especially since in actual competition, you only get one shot at it. It's
That's
not like
right.
you can figure it out and then bust 20 birds in a row. Unfortunately, you don't get that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned a moment ago, after you shoot a competition, you'll go back occasionally and reshoot that course. I think that is a phenomenal way to go back. My philosophy on that, and I believe it's how I fast track my progress as well, is I go back and figure out my mistakes. I hear people talking and dwelling on a station, man, that one just got the best of me. And, I missed that A-bird every time. And, I said, well, would you go back and shoot it? Well, no. It's like, well, you got to get back there, right? I mean, to me, it's okay if you get fooled once. If you see that same bird again in the competition and it gets you again, that's kind of on you.
Exactly. I agree. Couldn't agree with you more. A lot of times I'll just go back and just work on the stations where if I ran 5 or 6 stations and I didn't run 5 or 6 stations, I'll just go back and shoot those 5 or 6 till I do run them, until I get them figured out. Like I said, there may just be one particular bird, but, I'd like to leave there with an understanding of what I did wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And taking that comparison between, hey, here's how I approached it and here's what I needed to do. And then, figuring out those fundamental flaws. I think building a game is a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. And I think we got to assemble all these pieces, as we go, because sometimes we don't know areas of weakness that we have.
Yeah. I've got I guess a lot of people take a real natural approach to things. I'm a little more analytical. My background in engineering and technical, what I do for a living leads me to be very analytical. And I always look for root cause, and I'll do root cause analysis in my shooting. Where am I making my mistakes? Where did I miss my birds? Was there any consistency in those targets? Were they random, or were they all the same or similar? And then I'll break that down into, like you said, puzzle pieces, and I'll go out and see if I can't put that puzzle together.
Yeah. So curious, in your analysis that you're doing, do you have a top to bottom analysis that you run to decode a miss, or like what does that process look like for you? I mean, are there certain things you're just trying to nail on, like insertion or different things?
Usually when the first thing I'm going to look at is line. When I get back to a target that I didn't shoot well, if I get that opportunity, I'm going to look at line really hard, because more than likely I feel like I missed line. I don't feel like it was really lead or anything like that. It was line, hold point, or insertion. And that's what I'll look at.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, when you boil it down that way, I mean, if you have those 3 elements, you're probably highly likely to hit that bird. Yeah. And I think, the target setters, we definitely saw it at the Open, but they do a masterful job of using the terrain to deceive you. For example, a bird paralleling the ground perfectly, but the ground is rapidly sloping off, right? You don't get the perception that bird's dropping at all.
Yeah. Those guys are, man, they're good. They're good. They're incredible. The easier a target looks, the more it scares me.
Yeah. Those are the ones you're like, okay, what am I missing here? Because it just looks too straightforward.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they want you to think.
Yeah. I removed easy target from my vocabulary a long time ago. They all count for one. Yeah. So I guess going back into a practice session, I'm curious. You say you shoot a lot of singles. Do you find that just allows you to put all your mental energy into that one shot? Is that why not the pairs?
I just like practicing that way. I feel like I can really perfect a move on a single, and I might shoot a single 8 or 10 times, and then maybe it's an A bird, and then I might shoot the B bird 8 or 10 times, and then I'll put some pairs together. But I feel like during practice, that gets me into the zone. That gets me into a flow state where I can really, really get in tune with the target. And then I'll start putting pairs together and bring all that into it. But
Okay.
I don't know. I just like it. I just like doing it that way. It's just, I've done it that way since I started, and it works for me.
No, that's great. And that's it. I mean, everybody, in the audience listening, they hear some of the top shooters do X, Y, and Z, but I really am a firm believer. You've got to build your own, routines. You got to build your own practice sessions and kind of gather all this information and, really figure out what works for you. And, you mentioned that you're analytical and, that's your engineering background. And, so your mind works a certain way and you're going to approach the game, different from somebody else.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of different approaches to take for it. Now, we've talked a lot about, setup and, how you practice and everything. What are you doing with your eyes when you're shooting those birds? Do you designate a specific piece of the target? Do you feel like your vision's exclusively all bird, or, what do you got going on with the eyes when you're shooting?
You mean at the moment of pulling the trigger?
Yeah, I mean, to finish that shot off, what are you doing?
Well, I mean, I try to, using your eyes, I've learned is a game all unto itself. It's almost like a separate game inside the game. I can just remember when I first started, look at all the videos and read articles and listen to all the really good shooters talk, and they talk about look hard. You got to look hard at the target. And you think that you're looking hard at the target, but it's actually something, in my experience, it's something that you really never have done before until you experience it for the first time. When you see that target so clear that it looks like there's nothing else around it, it's just a target, a beautiful, tiny target that you can see definition on against a blurred background, a feeling that once you experience it, it's like, oh, wow, that's what they mean. You're just trying to look hard. So I've spent a lot of time trying to hone that, trying to literally learn how to use my eyes to their full advantage. My eyes aren't as young as they used to be. So, there's that. But I've spent a fair amount of time working on vision.
Yeah. I think you said that, people hear what shooters talk about, focusing the bird. And I think the misconception is people think, well, geez, I see every bird that I shoot at. And we do, right? Generally. But that flow state that you described, getting in that where it's just the zone, right? It is you and the bird and nothing else in the world exists. I mean, that is such a cool state to execute that shot in.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, that's what I mean when I say when you see the bird clear, you get that connected feeling. You get that synced up feeling where everything feels like it's slowing down and that you're so connected to the bird that it almost feels easy sometimes. It's not, but it kind of feels that way. And other times when you're struggling, you're really just looking at it. In my opinion, you're looking, you're trying. I mean, you're trying, but you're just not managing to pull it off. You're just not getting your eyes to focus the way that to connect with your brains, lead the hands, the way that you want them to. So I believe that that's something that could be worked on, and I do work.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. I was giving a lesson the other day to a student who I hadn't worked with before. And, I told him, hey, I'm really going to teach you how to use your eyes today. And he kind of shot me a look like I had two heads. He's like, I'm 30 years old. I've been seeing my whole life. And It's like, no, I understand what you're saying, but I think the eyes are muscles, right? And the more that we learn to use them and exert that visual effort. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel a sensation in my eyes when I've truly worked them to sharp focus that bird. It is not just gazing or watching. I mean, I'm feeling effort in the eyes on that. Do you feel a similar sensation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. To the point that I would say that when I've shot my better rounds, my eyes are tired when I'm done. I mean, they're literally tired. Yeah, that's what I mean. There's timing your eyes, timing when to pull that hard focus from a soft gaze, from an expanded view. Really learning how to focus on that target in such a way that you can see some detail. It's To me, it takes practice. It takes as much practice as learning how to mount your gun, learning how to make a particular move with a gun. I think reading targets is one part of the game. The mechanics of the gun movement, the actual connection to the bird with the gun is another, and then the eyes are the third. And I think if you put all three of those together, you can be a decent shooter.
Yeah, I've never looked at it that way. I mean, you kind of got the trifecta of everything you need, to be a well-rounded shooter there. That's a great way to lay it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the eyes are so interesting. Having worked with Dr. Colo, talking about the eyes, I've started explaining to people that, look, you have, imagine you had a fuel gauge associated with your eyes and your sharp focus, right? And you've got 1 second of focus fuel. And if you deplete that supply of focus, when that bird's coming from 60 yards out, by the time that bird arrives at the break point or, break zone, whatever you call it, your eyes are going to be cooked. They're going to be burnt out. So, I think learning to use the eyes is also learning when to deplete that supply of sharp focus, when to engage that sharp focus with the eyes. And that's a hard thing to learn, that timing with the eyes.
Yeah, agreed. That's what I was talking about when I said timing. When do you fire your eyes? When do you, if it's a really fast quartering bird coming off the trap close by, I know that I need to fire my eyes as fast as possible as soon as I see the flash, because I'm only going to have a half a second with the bird anyway. If it's a really long incomer, I stay relaxed. I try to keep my eyes relaxed until just a split second before I want to pull the trigger. So that I don't throw away that opportunity of hard focus. Because like you said, it's going to last about a second and then it's going to be gone.
Yeah. And that creates a very confusing miss because, at one point in time, right, you absolutely did see that bird, crisp and clear. But if you play it back like instant replay, maybe that didn't occur at the moment the gun went off, right? That could have been, a second before or after. And boy, it's a razor's edge on that focus that we're trying to time.
Your eyes can play a lot of tricks on you, and trap setters can play a lot of tricks on you for your eyes as well.
Whether it be in the sky, whether it be in the woods with strobing, there's a lot of conditions that interrupt that visual lock on that bird, and there's sometimes that I feel like I can't achieve that lock, due to the conditions or whatever it is. And I think we just kind of got to go with feel at that point, right? We just kind of got to default to connection to make that shot.
Yeah, I don't think you have a lot of choice. If you're looking as hard as you possibly can, but you're kind of making that connection, but losing it because the bird's going through shadows and strobing. And at some point you got to pull the trigger. You just got to hope that you're in the right place. That's about the only way I could put it.
Yeah. And that hope that you're in the right place. I mean, can you speak to how much faith it takes on your behalf to be able to turn loose of that shot when you're not certain? I mean, how do you navigate that?
Well, I'm not sure how to answer that. I would say that once you've chosen your break zone, some area in which you want to break the target, and that's the best place that you can see it. Once you're in that area, you've got to trust. I mean, you can't hold on to it forever. So you just got to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
There comes a point where you're just not going to see a bird clear. I think you saw that at the Open and some of those wooded stations where it was so deeply shadowed and there was so much strobing and they were really good birds. I thought, flying along ridge lines down through gullies, The topography was fantastic. The use of the topography was fantastic. So at some point, I think I don't like the word instinct, but sometimes you do got to go with instinct on some of those shots.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that for sure. At some point, if you do it enough times, you realize that shooting careful or shooting not to miss, it does you no good, right? There's no hope of even hitting the bird then. So you kind of, get to this point where you're like, fine, I'll just turn the shot loose and see what happens. And, you're generally pleasantly surprised that the bird broke. And I think over time, you just start letting your guard down more and more and trusting it and letting the shots start happening instead of making them happen. And boy, it feels like, you're not sure, taking faith, right? Taking trust. But gosh, I think that's the only way we can do it.
I think you're right. I call it goaltending. When you get careful, I call it goaltending. It's like you're trying to protect instead of, being aggressive. And when I say aggressive, I don't mean being reckless, but I mean, don't mess around, pick a break point and kill that bird in that area anyway. Maybe not in that exact point, but don't hold on, don't hold on waiting to try to see it better when it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. And when I'm making my pre-shot planning or something, I'll do kind of a visual clarity grading scale. If that bird's never going to be a 10 out of 10 clear, and I kind of realize, hey, that thing's only ever a 6 or an 8, right? The gun's got to go off when it gets to that level of clarity. And if it doesn't, I've kind of missed my prime opportunity to take that shot.
Right. And it's only going to get worse.
Yeah. Cause then, when you feel the day slipping away, and I like your term goaltending, when you start goaltending more and more, boy, it's a slippery slope then, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't usually add up to one of your finest performances. Usually, to me, when I goaltend, it's because my confidence is waning. If my confidence is up, I shoot my better scores for sure. Then I'm sure that goes for everybody, but that's just the way I view it. It's goaltending.
Yeah,
trying to protect.
No, I'm with you on the sentiment about confidence. So I guess, we kind of intuitively know like confidence is key, but where are you deriving your confidence from? Is it you've seen that presentation before? Do you feel like you've put in the effort in practice? Like, where is it just time and experience?
I think it's all the above, Cody. I think it's, shooting a lot of targets, seeing a lot of targets, being exposed to more competition, larger competition, being exposed to more trap setters, more target setters. Time and experience, I think, leads to confidence. Working hard, practicing hard, being successful, all adds up and to shooting with a little bit more confidence.
Yeah, I agree with that. I can't put my finger on one thing that, builds it the most. I do think you're right. I think it's a package of things that, and going to equipment too. You and I had a little conversation about, our gun fit and, stocks and that kind of stuff, right? You got to believe that your stuff is right and perfect, right? To trust it in that pressure situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's such a great game. And, I think that's why we're all so drawn to it is, it's the challenge and the appeal and, it looks so achievable and, but yet humbling all at the same time. And it's a great game.
Well, I look at it, I tell people all the time, it's kind of like golf, if you ever like to play golf, it's pretty easy to break 100, when you first start. Once you get down to around 80, it starts getting harder and harder and harder. And it's the same thing with this game. You start getting up to where you're shooting in the high 70s and the low 80s, and that every target starts to become harder to get. Once you get up, a little bit more competitive, it gets harder and harder. People, I don't know how many people realize how much difference there is between a 90 and a 92 sometimes. It's really every move you make is so much more important when you're trying to get one or two more birds.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Trying to squeak out, those couple extra targets there that, maybe the make or break proposition. I mean, doesn't it always come down to one bird? I mean, every bird counts. It just seems like, it's always one or two birds separating separating first and second.
Well, I don't think I've ever shot a single event that I didn't say if, woulda, and coulda. You know, if it hadn't been for that one over there and that one over there.
Yeah. That's a personal gripe of mine is, people will say, man, I had 6 stations to go and I was sitting on a 98, and I'm like, well, hang on a minute. You had 6 stations to go. You didn't have anything in the bag. Yeah.
Yeah, you're down to the last pair. You can say that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess going to, maybe expectation management, hearing what the conversation that we've talked about, the audience listening to this, going into a US Open. I mean, heck, let's go back to a monthly shoot. Like, what type of expectations are you setting going into that monthly shoot? Do you do it solely based off of score? Or are you trying to achieve process goals? I mean, what does that look like if Mike's preparing for a circuit shoot or something like that?
I'd say that I'm probably more fixated on points, where my standing is in open class or in my concurrent, which I'm a veteran. I'm more concerned with that than I am anything else, and improving that and steadily moving up.
Yeah, and that's your carrot on the string. That's your fuel to keep moving forward, is just move that needle on that.
Well, for me, I think that's probably the measurement that keeps me going. If I see that I'm moving up in standards, if I'm moving up in places, then I'm succeeding. That's my metrics. So that's my measuring stick. I think if you're a really competitive natured person, that would almost have to be your goal. To be higher in the rankings.
Yeah, that's I think that's a great, 30,000 foot view looking down on it. I mean, the day, the single day performance. I think we're looking to create a body of work, right? I mean, this is, you're looking to create a shooting portfolio, and you're going to have ups and downs and performance and good shoots and bad shoots and everywhere in between. But yeah, when you're just measuring the progress the way that you described, I think that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, I think it's a good metrics. It's a good view of accomplishment. Are you going the right way? Are you doing the right things? I think if you're steadily, maybe slowly, but steadily moving up in the rankings, then you seemingly have to be doing some of the right things anyway.
Sure.
If your stats are getting better.
Yeah. So at times in your shooting career, when you've made that analysis and you realize that, hey, I'm at a plateau, if somebody listening to this feels like, hey, I'm at a plateau in my shooting right now and just kind of stagnating where I'm at, what's something that you could give a listener that has helped you in the past get you over that plateau?
Well, I think plateaus happen to everybody in every game or every sport you could ever play. It's impossible to steadily increase performance, in my opinion. I believe that you're going to increase performance and then you're going to plateau. And then you're going to increase performance and then you're going to plateau. And eventually, as your performance improves, the plateaus will get longer and the improvements will get shorter, because there comes a point where some of these guys are so good. I mean, they can't hardly get any better. Right. I mean, it comes a point where, so when I feel like I've plateaued, I tend to get away from my gun for a week or two, and then I'll go out and practice, and I'll shoot 1,000 birds in practice over a couple, 3 days maybe, and really, really get back to working on basics. I always feel like that for me, when I'm feeling like a little something's not working right, I go back to basics. I go back to the things that got me shooting better to begin with, and I'll work on those. And usually I'll come out of that plateau and be just a smidge better.
That's interesting. So yeah, back to basics, right? Go back to what got you there, the fundamentals. Does setting the gun down for a week or two, does that create a hunger in you, or is just a way to forget bad habits, or what do you find? That's an interesting, I haven't had anybody answer, hey, I put the gun down when I'm at a plateau.
Well, I think that it's both of those. I think that you can put the gun down, and I don't mean for a long time, but sometimes you might just be getting a little burned out. Maybe you've just shot a lot of targets and you're just a little bit tired of it, and you're not really as intense as you were. You may not realize it. but you're just a little burned out. And sometimes you can put your gun down, put your golf clubs down, whatever, your tennis racket away for a little while, give it a week or two. You come back and whatever bad habit you might have been starting to ingrain is gone. And instead of ingraining that bad habit, you kind of let that slip and let it go. And then when you come back, start fresh and a little bit reinvigorated, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
it works for me. It works for me.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think a lot of people are going to get value out of that because we've all been frustrated at times or feel, a habit forming. And I think that's great advice. That's excellent.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to get away from it for a minute or two, and I don't mean for a long period of time, but, to me, not shooting for a week is a long time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I dusted my gun off today from the open, and it's only been a couple days, and I was chomping at the bit to get back out and shoot.
Yeah, when I was driving home Sunday, I was like, man, I'm done. I don't want to shoot anymore for a while. I shot 1,200 rounds in 5 days or whatever. That's good enough. I'm ready. I'm ready right now.
I know. I guess we have the bug bad.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, no, that's great. Mike, I have really enjoyed having you on the show. I think that we added a lot of value for the listeners, and that's something I always strive to do on the podcast. And I wanted to have you on. I just see you out there grinding. I see you out there, putting in the work, and just mad props to you for doing that, and your passion for the game shows through for sure.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I really do, and appreciate you having me on the show. And all I can say is you get out what you put in. That's the way I look at it. If you enjoy the work, you're going to enjoy the competition. Yep.
Yeah, no, I agree. That is a great way to wrap all this up. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I really hope that you've gotten a lot of good info. Mike has shared his a lot of years of knowledge there in a short period of time. So hope everybody enjoyed the show, and tune in next time. Awesome.
Thank you,
Mike.
everybody.
Thanks for joining us. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform to the Clay Lab so you don't miss an episode. Check out MadsonShootingAcademy.com or reach out to Cody at MadsonShootingAcademy@gmail.com. Consider joining as a channel member too by clicking that join button below on YouTube for early access to videos and podcasts. We'll catch you here next time on the Madison Shooting Academy Podcast.